National debt hits a record high, $32 trillion, 2 weeks after the debt ceiling deal that supposedly Biden and McCarthy had worked out. While cuts in debt ceiling deal could potentially harm a huge portion of the country's economy and specifically these certain people, and the SSA, Social Security Administration, issuing warnings or announcements, alerts that they're not going to be sending out these checks, or at least how this article describes it as Social Security's supplemental security income will not be collected in July. More of which we're going to discuss here in just a moment, but also why we are not out of the woods yet and how the chances of a government shutdown this fall are already in talks and on the rise. This after Democrats initiate and the House GOP initiate steep spending cuts despite the supposed debt ceiling deal. With the same question still being asked without any real answers being provided, are we still sending money to Ukraine? How many billions, if not trillions of dollars are we sending? Will there be spending caps set by the debt limit bill proposal for U.S. aid to Ukraine? This is after having followed an additional military assistance flowing to Kyiv. But again, I'm bringing you guys these notes from my MacBook Air because, again, I don't have the capacity to keep up with all this and try to make sense of it. If you were to see my notes, you'd probably have your mind like blown apart because everybody's saying something different, pointing fingers at somebody else, and at the end of the day, it all kind of boils down to like one simple fact, one simple truth, and that is that, well, I don't want to say what that is. If you guys know what it is, comment down below. I have my opinions. I don't want to create any bias or persuade you guys to believe something that may not be your initial thought. But I do want to share with you some important information about Social Security or the Social Security Administration and supplemental security income recipients in the United States, because I think the max payment is just under $1,000 per individual, with some exceptions. But it says that although the Social Security Administration does send a check each month of the year, so essentially 12 checks every year, there are times when it does not send one of these payments on time or each month. And this is due to an irregularity in the calendar. And ultimately, every Social Security income recipient who receives his or her monthly check, it may show up early, it may show up late. So there essentially are no worries that you're not going to get your money yet.
Yeah.
Because we already know that there's a shortfall, a projected shortfall in just a couple years in the Social Security Trust Fund. But you can rest easy today and enjoy that $1,000 max. I think it might be $900 some max check that you get every month from supplemental security. In addition, that during the current month of June, beneficiaries might actually get 3 checks. So 1 check for June, the early check for July, and then a 3rd check. But again, this means that retirees who have a disability or old age retirement benefit and supplemental security income could potentially see multiple checks coming. But as I shared with you guys on the previous videos, that they're sending 12 SSI checks, right? They're sending whatever Social Security, retirement, SSI, SSDI, they're going to send 12 checks. If they send July early in June, you still get a July check. They just send it in June. You got to manage that money. And also, if they gave you 12 checks in January and they don't give you checks for February through December, it's the same. But ultimately, you can get more, just like a lot of other people have already started doing, not only by getting your Facebook portion of their $725 million settlement claim, which is triple digits, is what I'm hearing, up to $1,000. You can also make money on Facebook and social media and Twitter by replying to comments or posting tweets. Anywhere from $40 a tweet to $175 a day. I mean, and this is just the beginning. I've put links in the description, free links for you guys to click on to get information for online jobs and making money using social media.
That sounds great for like, I want to say like stay-at-home moms especially, who want to still bring in some sort of income, but focus mainly on the household and the children. That's like a really good way to bring in a little extra something while kids are sleeping, or if they are at school or anything like that.
You're absolutely right. There's a variety of different industries and careers that I think it would be great for. And one of them I was actually thinking about yesterday was we checked into a different hotel and they said that they no longer have a hotel shuttle. They've terminated the shuttle.
Yeah.
So obviously jobs were lost there. But they replaced the shuttle with a complimentary Uber, okay? So you still can get to and from the hotel and the airport, this, that, and the other. But I know that Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, gig work drivers, rideshare drivers, Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, Postmates. I don't know if there's any, I don't know all of them, but
Spark is Walmart, yeah.
I thought that this would be a great add-on to these folks, because usually what I see is they turn on all their apps in their car and they'll see what hits, what pings, where's the most money, or greatest opportunity. And the worst part about the rideshare is that oftentimes they end up getting sent somewhere and they can't get back. So like they may get a good fare going a great distance, but then they kind of eat that up on the way back to where they were kind of like hanging out, or home. So they use that money in fuel, maybe go buy an EV or electric vehicle, but that's expensive too. But I think for these folks, while they're sitting there waiting, they could be using these online social media job opportunities to make money by posting tweets and replying to comments. So it's coming down to being very creative and innovative and adapting to this economy and this economic change, diversity, security, and cash flow. And again, most of these people that are doing this like as extra side gig work, having multiple jobs. But if the job that you have doesn't require your full attention, for instance, sitting in a holding lot waiting for Uber or Lyft, then you can use that time to do something else that could then potentially pay you on top of that.
Now, this is totally off topic of what you're talking about, but we are sitting outside of the hotel we're staying in right now, and it's breakfast, and there's a lot of people going in and out these double doors over here, and it's windy, and when people are going out, they're just letting it slam behind it. I don't know if you've heard it, but it just slams right behind them. And the only person I have seen so far that did not let it slam was a younger kid who, when he walked in the door, he stood there with the door and held it so that it closed softly, as opposed to slamming shut so that the people right next to the door aren't hearing it in their ears, so that doesn't possibly break the glass, so that it's just not, it was just a small moment of consideration for the establishment's door and the people around it that I thought was nice.
It was very nice of him. Nice young man. But the chaos continues and could be destabilizing to markets. And we're not talking about this slamming door over here. Both a possible government shutdown and mandatory spending cuts are waiting at the end of the road if the gridlock continues into the fall and winter. And this is all coming to fruition after debt ceiling talks stalled. Now, granted, we have this temporary, order in place, but at the end of the day, you got to think to yourself, how can this impact your check from the government? If you're on a SSA or fixed income or retiree, beneficiary, survivor benefit recipient, how do you prepare for potential painful crash in just a few months? If we were, they're talking about a government shutdown, okay? And ultimately, this is a complex, complicated, and confusing three-phase process wrapped in red tape and bureaucracy, likely to cost taxpayers billions more. Now, it says that
I like how the taxpayers are always the ones that are on the hook for when the government can't do its job.
No, you see, I think the thing is that the government knows that they can abuse the taxpayers, so they do that. Like that is the primary goal, first and foremost.
To pull as much money from the people as humanly possible, and then sit around with their thumb up their butt and do
Well,
nothing.
yeah, I mean, and it's like you think about, some of the places that they send this money. Well, it's like, well, you can't just put it right in your bank account. No, that would be illegal.
We're going to tax you and then send it to people in Ukraine instead.
Well, we're going to tax you, and then we're going to sign a contract that would allow for corporation XYZ to, get this government contract for however many hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, they know what they're doing.
We overtax you so we can undertax them so that they're happy.
They know what they're doing. But here are some of the major milestones to watch out for in the next few months ahead, and some of the possible risks to the economy, which, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. Make sure you have your notifications turned on, and even if you are a current subscriber, make sure your notifications are still turned on, because YouTube's playing some weird games. But we will be covering these milestones and watching these phases play out, and the changes and possible risks to the economy, with number one, phase one, being a messy appropriations process this summer, with House Appropriations Committee led by Chairwoman Kay Granger, and her committee will be charged with passing 12 different bills in the months ahead to set spending across an array of government operations like agriculture, education, homeland security, and more.
Now, keep in mind that Kay Granger is a Republican from Texas. I do think that the state the state matters sometimes, especially when she's from Texas and they're going to be talking about agriculture and things like that, because Texas is where a lot of stuff is grown, animal-wise, and...
Well, Texas is growing their own currency, too.
That's true.
They're growing a gold-backed digital currency.
Yeah.
But the thing that concerns me is that there's 12 different bills, and I know that each bill is going to have its own little gotchas here and there. And with having 12, it just means it's just more for people to potentially try to catch.
All these bills right now that are coming out will say, and other provisions, and it never specifies what those others are. You approve this bill, you pass this bill without ever knowing what and others are, and then when they throw them in later, there's nothing you can do because you've already passed the bill, and those and others just slide in under the door.
And this process, which was agreed to as part of the debt ceiling deal, is the key first step in the overall budget talks. It's really not like any form of like solution here. It's just talk. It's just talk. McCarthy's agreement means those House bills are now set to be considered at a lower level based on fiscal year 2022 spending, and the result is that House Republicans are now looking for about $120 billion in additional cuts to government programs. And yeah, you got to think, if they're cutting government programs, $120 billion, will these include the government programs that provide for fixed income recipients?
It always blows my mind that they're going to cut government funded programs, but never cut their own paychecks, never cut sending money to other countries, never cut helping people that aren't part of their country.
There have even been some highly paid CEOs that have chosen to take pay cuts to, help their business and their employees survive.
That's a company I would work for.
You never see that happening from the top, as top down.
Yeah.
But Biden, he also never really refers to it as top down. He always says from the inside out.
Yeah.
Either way, phase two, following phase one, is followed by phase two, a possible government shutdown in the fall. So that's not long from now. And then phase three is a possible mandatory spending cut on January 1, which we've talked about. If you didn't watch my video yesterday, you might want to go check it out, because what they're doing is they're manipulating the data and they're manipulating the numbers. And what they're doing is they are making it appear as though inflation is under control. Inflation is being reduced. Inflation CPI numbers are coming down. The Fed has got it under control. But what they're also doing is they're stating now that they could potentially make drastic changes to the cost of living adjustment, the COLA, because they got inflation under control, which we all know isn't necessarily true. All the things that your money, that your fixed income, that your paycheck, that your savings is being depleted of to buy food and the necessities, fuel, gas, whatever, utilities, expenses, those are still going up in price, but they don't get calculated into the CPI. So you got to think, if they can say that inflation's down, then they can reduce the cost of living adjustment going up, which means they will limit how much money you get, while most of the things that your money's going to be spent on continuously rise in price.
Sounds fun.
Which I don't know. Maybe they can go backwards. Maybe they can reverse. Maybe they can, kind of like what they would want to do with central bank digital currency and CBDC, and set expiration dates and negative interest rates. Like, let's just say we had negative inflation. Let's say they could do negative inflation. Prices actually came down for what they calculate. We have negative inflation. Do they then go back and adjust the cost of living adjustment down to take away money?
I could see them doing that to people, but I don't ever see them lowering price. Once you are used to paying a certain price, what is the point in them lowering it? You're used to it now.
It's not so much the price, it's saying that inflation has come down through CPI numbers.
Totally random, but for those of you who are curious how windy it is, because you're watching all the stuff behind us, it's 17-mile-per-hour winds right now. Just want to throw that out there.
It's really windy in Tampa.
It's also because there's a bunch of storm systems coming in, so that's going to be great for us on Sunday.
There's a hurricane coming in from the Atlantic. But we're in the Gulf, and we're heading to Cozumel, Mexico. But there are hurricane storms coming. There is this, illness circulating throughout cruise ships. It's going to be really, really interesting. But at the same time, we're also working on some getting you guys some exclusive insider intel with our very own investigative journalist here through the cruise line, and we're in talks and communication. We'll see if we can get you guys some exclusives about what's really going on and what's really happening. In addition to everything else that Michelle and I are going to cover in great detail over on Patreon, since so many have been already asking for us to do this on a live stream, live chat, which is what we offer on Patreon. It's a live stream like you would see on YouTube, but you guys get to join us as well.
Vocally, not just typing.
Real time.
Yeah, face to face talking.
You can choose to turn your camera off if you want. I'm a huge proponent of showing you guys how to make YouTube content, faceless YouTube content, but it allows us to literally have these real talks and conversations with real people about real stuff, things that are really happening. Plus, more on the money, billions, if not trillions, huge amounts of money of our taxpayer dollars being sent to other countries like Ukraine, congressional support for aiding Ukraine, and any potential spending caps, which are probably unlikely. House Republicans are plowing forward with plans to mark up their funding bills at lower levels, teeing up what could be a nasty spending battle and a potential government shutdown later this year. Democrats are fuming after House Republicans said this week that they plan to shoot for much lower than top-line spending targets negotiated by President Biden and Speaker Kevin McCarthy as part of their deal to raise the debt limit.
Wouldn't that be a good thing that the Republicans are trying to do?
I think
lower the top-line spending?
I think you're right. It just depends on
what they're trying to stop the spending on. If it's okay, that makes sense.
Exactly. Like, does it lower spending on
to Ukraine, or is it lower spending to the people of this country?
Right.
Got it.
Now, we've got cuts, tens of billions of dollars from the Departments of Labor, Education, Health and Human Services, and others. So none of these. The Department of Labor really withstand more cuts. None of these really sound like cuts to Ukraine.
No.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Or cuts to the people that are making the deals.
You see, and ultimately, this moves us in a direction of, you could say, a continuing resolution. But in October, we're looking towards a shutdown. So, wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Either way. Cuts in debt ceiling could harm entrepreneurs as well. As I told you guys earlier in this video, entrepreneurs could be at risk. While it was absolutely essential that lawmakers raise the debt ceiling to avoid economic turmoil, the legislation to do so unfortunately makes cuts to programs designed to help underserved entrepreneurs start, sustain, and potentially scale their small businesses. Again, this doesn't sound like they're cutting money to Ukraine.
It sounds like they're making it harder for people to be self-sustaining and to not have to rely on the government or bigger corporations.
And this is why I think it's so important that if you're going to start a business, I would definitely be looking to start a business that required very little, if any, money to start, which is why I created videos that literally show you how to invest when you have no money. The video is titled "How to Invest When You Have No Money." Go check it out. Buried in the details of the debt ceiling deal is a $150 million cut in funds for the state's Small Business Credit Initiative, SSBCI, which provides funds to states to promote entrepreneurship, support small business ownership, and democratize access to capital. Now, if you guys recall, now they're talking about making these cuts already, but if you recall, one of the key selling features of central bank digital currency, CBDC, was just that, better access, inclusion, and I don't really see that happening here. And if they can kind of get this ball rolling now, before July, before FedNow, before the initiative goes into place for central bank digital currency and this token, then it's a complex and convoluted mess wrapped up in an enigma and then tied tight with red tape. Like,
did they put a bow on it at least?
They are not trying to help you succeed, okay?
No.
These cuts are expected to lead to about a 30% reduction in funding for programs that help small business owners navigate their financing options and learn the ropes of running a business at a time where we're supposed to be building back better.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be building back better, and if they say 30%,
they
think 40.
Think but
50.
Here's the thing. Everybody's thinking build back better means for the country, but it could just mean for the bigger corporations that got hurt during the
It could
pandemic.
mean for those on the upward trend of this K-shaped recovery, as
it's not us.
the ones getting the cut to help their businesses and entrepreneurs start, and then those who are further increasing and widening the wealth gap.
Yep.
And at a worse time than ever, Biden goes quiet on killing off the debt ceiling. And here's where it gets real interesting, because the president appears to have dropped his promise to explore the 14th Amendment, worrying some Democrats wary of another battle in just a few years. But our battle is actually going to be coming soon, in just a few months, with this government shutdown that they're talking about. The standoff is now over, technically. But Biden appears to be in no rush to try and kill off the debt ceiling. Aides say the topic isn't coming up at all. So he signed this, he signed this procrastination until 2025.
January 1st, 2025. So he's like, why do today what I can do tomorrow? You know what I mean? That's pretty much what it comes down to.
And instead, the sense inside the administration is that it's not worth the White House time and effort to work on averting a crisis that might arrive in 2025.
You know why? Because he might not be here in 2025. So he's thinking to himself, why am I going to put my time and effort into this right now when I might not be here in 2025? Why do this if what I say could hurt my votes in 2024? So we're just going to shush, go get our chocolate ice cream, go pet some children, and call it done.
I think it's butter pecan.
It's chocolate.
Oh, it's chocolate?
It's chocolate ice cream. I like
Rocky
chocolate
Road?
ice cream. No, just plain old
Turtle
chocolate.
Tracks? We're going to cut this video short. We got, but either way, I think you're right. I think this is about getting votes. I think it's about kicking the can down the road, get the votes, and then we can address this issue for 2025. Otherwise, it's somebody else's problem, not mine.
Say what you want. Say what they want to hear now, and then maybe you follow through with it. Maybe you don't when it's time.
But I do think that if he gets the votes, they're going to kick it down the road, and he's not. He's done. He's like. He's on vacation.
Yes.
It's like, yo, you just signed me for 4 more years. I got a deal. Like, I don't have to work hard. I don't have to do anything. Not like
do you think he'll know?
Not like he really worked hard, but it's like he can't get another term. So
after that, but do you think he'll know if he's president again? He'll just be like, what? Me? Is it me? And just shuffle on out to the podium?
Oh man, I hope I don't hope that he trips, but I hope that we do get some sort of like comical.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm looking forward to Saturday Night Live skits.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the White House, I guess who would play DeSantis in Saturday Night Live?
Oh, that's easy. The Moffat guy. What's his name? Something Moffat. The one with the curly hair. He would totally play him.
Or who would play Newsom? Or who would play?
Gavin Newsom would be the same one who plays Trump right now. I don't know his name on there though.
Okay, that guy.
Yeah, but it would be a cast member. It would definitely be a cast member.
Now, White House Press Secretary Karen Jean-Pierre, she's deflected questions over whether Biden would keep his initial vow to explore whether the 14th Amendment invalidated the debt ceiling entirely, saying earlier this month it's now something for Congress to kind of deal with.
To kind of deal with. To kind of deal with. How is that? Okay.
almost feel like I'm reading this from Weekend
Saturday Night
Update.
Live. Yes.
From Weekend
Where's
Update.
Colin Jost and Michael Che when you need them?
Inside the administration, the prevailing attitude is that the White House's time and effort are better spent on more politically pressing topics rather than averting a future crisis that is not set to happen during Biden's term. It's literally spelled out.
Literally not happen during Biden's term, so why should we worry about it?
Right, exactly,
Well,
exactly.
You're shaping the entire future of the country while you're in your 4 years or however long of presidency. So shouldn't you do all you can to ensure that what comes after you doesn't tank the country? Like, that makes sense.
Because what we're going to do is, we as the government is going to ultimately, in the current administration, is going to make it harder for businesses to survive, harder for people to survive, harder for people to pay bills and afford their basic necessities, further destroy the economy, and then right before election, we're gonna dangle this carrot of some money in front of you,
chocolate covered carrot,
chocolate covered carrot. Dangle this carrot in front of you, the idea and possibility of helping businesses and negotiating this debt ceiling. But if they do too much now, they have nothing later.
That's true.
And then the same people who have been blinded in the past are going to fall for it again, and then still be like, wait, I didn't get any student loan forgiveness.
How does that go? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me two times, won't be fooled again. Isn't that how George Bush put it?
It was a J. Cole song featuring George Bush.
Yeah.
But it says, according to another White House advisor who was granted anonymity
I'm glad you could say that.
speak freely, they say that I have not heard any discussion of it at all. And they're talking about the debt ceiling negotiations. And I don't see any action being taken anytime soon, mostly because they don't really know who will be making the decisions next time. You could have a Democratic House. So it all comes down to whose problem will this be in the future versus trying to solve the problem that could actually be solved right now, today.
Turn it the other way. No, upside down with the little arrow.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, is that the arrow?
We're trying to help here. You live out here now. That's basically how it comes down.
I just walk around.
It's nice out. The wind feels good.
He probably had his car. He probably had his car like close to a magnet or something.
Oh,
like
that's
you were
what I was
asking the
gonna
other
say.
day if
Yeah.
like the Tesla would lock you out. You were like, "What's the little circle on the B pillar of the Tesla?" And I was like, "That's how you put the card."
But it just looked like they forgot to paint that one spot on the B pillar. It looked really
It's
weird.
Tesla, anything's possible,
That's
really,
true.
because their quality is pretty poor. And somebody actually commented on the video I put up earlier today that they saw somewhere that Ford. Now, granted, I think all these car companies and manufacturers are going to start working together soon. Maybe. But Ford is actually working with China to create a Chinese Ford and put the Ford logo on it. But interestingly enough, maybe they won't work together because the governor of Florida has actually put a new bill in place that restricts manufacturers from going direct to consumer and basically cutting out the car dealerships, which a lot of them want to do. Which I think a lot of people would actually kind of prefer because the dealerships have been like gouging them on markups.
Oh yeah.
But maybe not so much anymore, as like I told you, we've been driving around and we're seeing all these dealerships loading up with inventory that they can't sell. You could literally go out and buy a F-250 Super Duty Power Stroke 6.7 liter turbo diesel today. You can go get one, whereas 12 months ago, wasn't gonna happen.
You know why? I don't know if you remember this. I talked about this about a month ago. Ford had signed a contract to do business in Ohio, to have a plant in Ohio, do a bunch of business in Ohio, build new vehicles there. And at the last minute, right after the Norfolk Southern fiasco, if you will, in East Palestine, they pulled back on their contract and took their manufacturing plant to Mexico instead, because they said they could then do the work for cheaper, which would then relay the savings to the consumer. What I heard was more Americans still not getting a job, take it to another country, give a different country the job, and then tell you that it's going to save you money.
It's going to save them money.
It's going to save them money. It's going to be the same price for you either way.
Save them money and allow them to increase their profit margin without raising their price, so to speak. But interesting enough, whatever happened to all the trucks that didn't have semiconductor chips, that were just like fields and like parking lots of trucks that could never be completed?
They got shipped off to other countries. I bet money.
But speaking of Florida, this direct-to-consumer wipeout excludes Tesla.
Of course it does.
So the governor of Florida, who announced his bid as presidential candidate on Twitter, has basically granted permission for only one manufacturer to go direct to consumer, that being Elon Musk's Tesla.
That's convenient.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah, but
Elon Musk is a strong supporter of Ronnie, and has publicly backed him.
yes.
So we're going to see how that plays out. Meanwhile, further concerning and quite possibly terrible problems, very worrisome, that you and I ultimately will be left to deal with after Biden's first or possible second term concludes, with the second term just kind of being a roller, like just coasting, It'll be a roller coaster ride for us, but he'll be coasting into retirement.
I don't know if it'd be a roller coaster ride for us. More like that free fall where you can see the end, and then they set the end of it on fire at the same time, and you're like, this is going to end horribly.
It's the ride at the local carnival or fair that wasn't inspected, and most of the bolts are loose. And,
yeah.
But President Biden says that he could invoke Constitution to order the Treasury to issue bonds and keep paying government bills. Again, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And this whole, the whole reason behind the 14th Amendment to be used during debt negotiations, like, really? But either way, more to come. Free links down below in the description. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure your notifications are turned on. Check out Squirrel Tribe 2.0. And also join
Make sure your subscription is still intact as well, because there's been a lot of iffy, wonky thingies happen.
I've been
so just double check.
and I didn't unsubscribe.
Yeah, just double check.
And then make sure you join the discussion that we are constantly having on Patreon. You guys be safe, be kind, and we will see you soon.
Bye.